Hey guys, this is Jeff with the Create Today channel. Today we're going to take a look at how to create this cool kind of plastic looking type effect. I call it the plastic wrap type effect because we actually do use the plastic wrap filter at some point in the process to come up with this really cool, colorful, weird looking type effect. So why don't we go ahead and just dive right in. Okay, here we are in Photoshop, and by the way, I'm on a Mac and I'm using the latest version of Adobe Creative Cloud as of this recording, which is Photoshop CC 2017. If you're on a PC, you're going to hear me say Command click this or Command do that. That would be the Control key on your end. And if I say Option, that's going to be the Alt key on a PC. So for the sake of not repeating that throughout the course, just know that Command key on a Mac, Control key on a PC, Option key on a Mac, and Alt key on a PC. Okay, I'm starting with a brand new document here. I made it the size 1920 by 1080 pixels, which is the resolution that I'm recording this video at, so I just picked that as a good size to work with. I've also added some center guides, both vertical and horizontal. If you need to learn how to do that, you can check out one of my other tutorials, Creating Center Guides, where I show you how to do that, as well as create an action to make center guides with the push of a hotkey. Okay, now let's create some type that we're going to use as the base for this effect. I'm going to get my type tool, and I'm going to come up here and pick a font. Now I'm using a font called Arista 2.0. And I like it because it's real rounded and smooth and will work good for this effect. I'll put a link in the description where you can download that. It is a font that you can use for free for personal use, so you can certainly download it and follow along with this tutorial if you'd like to. So I'm going to come up here, and I've already selected Arista 2.0. Of course, you could use something else. I'm just looking for that rounded, real smooth look for this plastic effect. I'm setting my type size pretty large here, 450 points, and I'm setting it to be aligned center using this icon right here. I'm going to come down right in the middle of the document on the center guide, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to type the word plastic. There you go. See, it's a pretty cool looking font, I think. I'm going to grab my pointer tool, and I think I'll just move this down, holding my shift key. Just kind of drag it down a little more. Right in the center there. Okay, that's good. And one last small thing, I think I'll click my type tool, click in the type, Command A to select all, Command T to pull up my character palette here, and I'm going to set the kerning, where it says metrics right now, I'm going to set that to optical. You see the difference? Let's try it again. From metric to optical. It just looks a little more pleasing to me, and I think it's going to work out better for our effect. Okay, we can close up this character palette here for the type, and we can get our pointer tool, or our move tool is really what it's called, and that'll deselect our type here. Now what we want to do, I think I'll hide those center guides for a bit by hitting my command and semicolon on my keyboard. Now I want to command click, make sure you're in your move tool. I'm going to command click on my plastic type layer here, and that loads it as a selection. You can see the marching ants here. I want to make sure I'm in a selection tool now. I hit M on my keyboard, and that put me in the selection tool. I'm going to come inside the selection, and I'm going to right click on my mouse here, and I'm going to go to Save Selection. It's going to give me an option to name it. I'm going to just call this Clean Type. Since it's not been affected in any way, it's just the same as what the layer is. I'm going to hit OK, and that'll save it as a new channel in our channels palette. Okay, let's come up to our channels palette here, and you'll see here's the new channel down here called Clean Type. You can see we still have the selection going, so I'm going to hit Command D on my keyboard to deselect it. But essentially what we've done is taken that selection, turn it into a channel, so we can start doing things with the channel to get the effect that we're going for. Now I want to go ahead and duplicate this channel that we created by dragging it down to the little page icon here, and that creates a copy. And that is the one that we're going to do some stuff to now. I want to keep my clean one up here for later, but right now I'm going to use this copy that we made. I want to come up here under Filter, and let's go to Blur and then Gaussian Blur. We're going to blur this type out, and I think I'm going to use about 20 pixels. So I'm going to just type in 20. You see it's pretty blurred, but it's still, you can see what it is. I'm going to hit OK. Now the next cool thing we're going to do, and this is where the plastic wrap filter comes in. Since we're on that blurred layer, we're going to come up to Filter, and then we're going to come to Filter Gallery. And I'm already set to the plastic wrap, but you'll find that under Artistic, and then if you drop down that little folder, you're going to find plastic wrap right here, and that's what I've selected. You can see that looks pretty cool. You start to get all these weird highlights, and it looks almost like balloons or something weird, you know. You can play with these different settings if you want. I kind of like the 15, 9, 7, but again, you can play with the highlights, the detail, the smoothness, until you get it the way that you like it. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And there we have, let's take a look at the clean channel by clicking that. There's the original type, and then this here is our plastic wrapped layer. I think I'll go ahead and double click here and name it plastic wrap type. At this point I should probably save my file. Save. I'm going to do it to the desktop, and I'm just going to call this plastic wrap type effect. Saving it as a PSD file. Okay. Now we have a pretty cool look going on here with this plastic wrap type right here. But what I want to do is I want to extract just kind of the letters, kind of these roundy, balloony, plasticky letters, and not all this background here, because I want to be able to do some other effects to this and actually have it on a layer and colorize it, do a bunch of stuff to it. So we're going to use this channel right here that's called Clean Type. And we're going to kind of fatten that up, and then we're going to adjust it to make a selection that will let us just kind of cut this type right out of there. So let's go to this channel here, Clean Type. Let's go up to Filter, and let's go to Blur, and then Gaussian Blur again. And this time we're going to do about 30 pixels, so it's a little bit more blurred than the last time we blurred. I'm going to hit OK. And then I want to bring up my levels, doing Command L here. And what I'm going to do is grab the highlight triangle over here. I'm going to pull that way over to the left. You see how it's just, wow, it's fattening that whole thing up, and it might look weird, but the goal here is to create basically just a big white area that will become our selection to be able to cut that type right out of the middle there. So we're pretty close here. You see how I pulled the highlight all the way over, and these three triangles are all just kind of lined up right next to each other. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to bring up levels one more time, Command L, and this time I'm going to kind of pull the shadow end, this dark triangle, over to the right. We're just getting rid of that gray fuzz along the edge of the shape. Not so much that it gets super hard, but just leave just a slight softness on the end there. Okay, leave a little bit, and hit OK. Okay, so now we have this area where it's white is going to load as a selection. We're going to be able to use that, load it right over this. So you'll see if I command click on this right now, see how it kind of, it's just going to pull that part of the type right out of there. And of course you could have adjusted this a little bit differently, a little bit fatter, slimmer, to get more or less of the type. I'm going to deselect. Okay, now I want to take this and actually put it on a layer, because right now it's just in a channel. So I'm going to select all, Command A, and I'm going to copy, Command C. Then I'm going to go over here, well, first go back to RGB, and then I'm going to click on my layers palette. I think I'll turn off this original type here, this type layer, deselect, and let's just paste, Command V, and we just pasted that, what we got out of the channel, into a new layer. Okay, I'm going to go back to my channels. I'm going to command click on this clean type layer. Back to my layers. And now I can come in here with a selection tool. Make sure you're in a selection tool. Right click in the middle of that selection and let's do layer via copy. Okay. And then I'm going to turn off this layer that we're looking at here now. So now you see we have just that plastic type right there in the middle. See? We can turn off the background so you can see that's all that's on this layer here. Okay, now let's make this plastic type look even cooler. We're going to apply a layer effect, or a couple of layer effects actually, to this plastic type layer that we have here. So I'm going to come down to the layer effects icon, go to color overlay. Okay, here's a color. We can pick any color we want, but the important thing is that we want our blend mode to be color, so that it just colorizes our plastic type there. I'm going to go to the color swatch here, click, and then I think I'll pick something in this blue range here. You know, and you can play with this, whatever looks good to you. I kind of like that blue, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then come down to drop shadow. I click that. I'm going to leave it about 70% opacity. The blend mode is in multiply. And you know, you can play with the size of the drop shadow, all that kind of thing, the distance of the drop shadow, but I think I'm going to go with 12 for the distance and 16 for the size. Just kind of a subtle drop shadow, not too big, not too heavy, and hit OK. Looks pretty cool at this point, but let's add some more color. So I'm going to come up here to my original type layer and command click on that and load that as a selection. And then I'm going to create a new layer by going down here to this page icon in the layers palette. Click that. We have a new layer. Got our selection loaded, and I'm going to fill that with the foreground color, which is black currently. By option delete, fill it with the foreground color. Then I'm going to deselect. And on that new layer, I'm going to set the fill percentage, which is right up here, down to 0. Okay, so now we can't see the black, but we're going to apply a layer effect, which will affect wherever there are actually pixels on that layer. So we'll only see the layer effect. So I'm going to come down here to layer effects, and I'm going to start with gradient overlay. In the gradient overlay settings here, I'm going to select blend mode of color, which I already have. I'm going to select a gradient. You can load up other gradients or use the default ones. I've selected this one right here. And then I'm actually going to click this little reverse checkbox, which kind of flips the gradient to go the other direction, or opposite of what it was. We have a linear gradient, and I'm setting my scaling to about 81%. Looks fine to me. You can play with that if you want to get more or less. I think I'll just leave it at the 81%, and then we're going to come down here and add another one. So we're going to add drop shadow this time. So in my drop shadow, I'm in multiply blend mode. I've got my opacity about 70%. I've got my distance set to 5 pixels and my size to 16 pixels. Now you can play with this. You know, you can move the distance more or less. You see it changing there. But I think I'll do about 5 right now. Just on a little subtle drop shadow coming off of that. Then one more thing, we're going to add the inner glow effect. So I click on inner glow here, I checked it, and you can see the effect that it's having already. We've set our color to black, our opacity to 70%. I've selected softer as the technique to be used. You can do precise and get a different look. Okay, you decide what you like. I think I'll just do softer for now. I've got the size at 24 pixels, and we're going to hit OK. Now that's looking pretty cool. But let's add kind of a gradient background behind this just to finish it up. So we're going to go to our background layer here, I'm going to click the little lock to just unlock it. And then I'm going to go down to Layer Effects, this little effects icon, and we'll pick Gradient Overlay. Okay, we're going to change our blend mode instead of color to normal. We're going to pick a gradient. In this case, I'm going to do just the foreground to background like that. I'm going to uncheck reverse, so I've got that dark down at the bottom here going up to light, as though the light was kind of coming down, casting this drop shadow. And you know, we can play with the opacity if we want to. I think I'll just kind of leave it like that. Maybe I'll pull it down. I'll hold my shift key, click out here on the canvas, and just kind of pull it down a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to click OK, and there we have it. Our plastic wrap, plasticky, cool looking type, and I think it looks pretty good. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe so you can get the latest updates as I add new videos, tutorials. Thanks for watching. This is Jeff with the Create Today channel.